Sometimes we can learn things from people that we have absolutely no idea have something to teach us. Earlier today, when I was at work, one of the guy who owns the building that our store is in, he's from Palestine, and he and I had an in-depth conversation. He's an older gentleman. We had a really deep conversation about the state of the world and how people see things at different junctures of their lives. And he's from from a different part of the globe, and he's got his own set of spiritual beliefs and the way that he sees the world. And it's very interesting to see how different people how different people go about finding peace in their lives. Now, in my last video, I spoke about the importance of spirituality and religion. And as I said in my video, I'm sure that the sea of guys that find some sort of security in labeling people with beliefs that don't line up with their new age postmodern narrative that they subscribe to, the degrading terms, believing that those people are, I guess, involved in a fantasy. Now, I understand part of that narrative. I understand where that mindset comes from, because I did the same thing in my journey from going through childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, and then coming to, I guess, halftime, hopefully, in my life at 50 years old. Now, a lot of people that are quote unquote influencers in this space like to join in on narratives of calling people names and labeling men, to put men in another group that they can feel superior to. And I'm not about that. I see all of that as circus shit, and the people who partake in that are clowns to me, because as men, it takes all types of men to make society function. Everybody can't be as cool as the pimp, or as a player as the player, or whatever. I mean, we've got all of these things that we like to qualify one another as, and not really being able to take a good look in the mirror and seeing that the need to do that comes from a really deep underlying insecurity in oneself. And so the narrative that people that have traditional conservative values are some sort of way, blue pill monkey simp fools, or whatever these fucking clowns say, it's dismissive, it's degrading, and to me it's words of cowards. But again, I understand how some who go the way of the educational route, going the scientific route or the psychological route, where you've got men seeking to give other explanations than the ones that we've already have, that already make sense in the natural order of things. I guess that's just that's the hubris of mankind. But I get it, because I went down the same path. I think to clarify where I've come from and where I'm at, it would make sense to give a brief synopsis of why I'm here now saying the things that I'm saying. When I was a younger man, I got dragged to different churches by whoever was in control of the steering wheel of my life as a young man. And I remember hearing all the indoctrinations from the different cults that have broken off from Christianity. Everybody's got their own set of rules and beliefs, and if you don't do this, then it's this, and if you don't do that, then it's that, and it's all this jumbled up pile of shit that nobody seems to have a good, firm direction of what's right. And over the years, I've watched the church give way to society's degradation and gradually accept things that were once unacceptable based off of the morality code that was supposed to define the church, define Christianity. And so as that started to degrade, I began to get older, and the decisions that I made as a younger man led me to a place where I got to go to the penitentiary. Well, before I went to the penitentiary, I went on the run, and for 6 to 8 months, I was looking over my shoulder, hustling, bouncing from California to Texas, just trying to stay one step ahead of the law. And as I went about this play in my life, I just kept getting in more and more trouble. Every time I would go somewhere, something would happen, and we would have to deal with it, and then we would bounce to another spot, and I was just going from place to place to place, and I was putting myself in situations where, for everything that I could see, I should have been killed. I should no longer be here. But for whatever reason, I kept getting away. I kept slipping. I kept going just one step ahead of whatever it was that I was trying to duck. And along that journey, I didn't have any spiritual ties or any of that stuff. I was 100% serving whatever my desires were. And things were getting way out of control. I mean, my brother got caught, went to the penitentiary, and I no longer had anybody to watch my six. And I was starting to reap the karma for everything that we had done to build what we had built. And I was no longer protected with my brother being at my side. And so I could feel the monster of karma or retribution or whatever coming to me from the streets, and then from what I had done by the law was chasing me. So in the midst of all of this, I ran into a guy that was a reverend at a church, and I ended up talking to him. I went to the church and felt something immediately, and it wasn't because I was looking for something. Something grabbed me in the church. And so for the next month, I went about doing things with the church and trying to help young gang members who were involved in doing some of the same shit that I was running from, to try to get them to understand, the path that they were taking. And I had legitimately turned my life around. I was headed down a path, and I felt like I had purpose, and the church was going to help me deal with what my court system was. Well, my court process was going to be. So, I put my faith in that, in those guys, and eventually I got caught. And while I was in jail waiting to go to court, these same guys who brought me into the church were supposedly going to, make sure that my home was taken care of. And they were taking care of a lot more than just looking out. Yeah, I found out that several of the guys that were involved in this church were doing shit that no dude would ever want to find out his woman was doing while he was away. And I found out about it. I found out about it right before I caught the chain to go to TDC. And at that point, I went to war with God, because I felt like I got set up. I felt like I got set up to allow that to happen. And I just turned my back and I went on a journey. I went on a journey through the wilderness where I immersed myself in different philosophies. I studied the Quran. I studied the Tao Te Ching. I studied Buddhist texts. I studied everything that I could get my hands on, because there was emptiness in my soul. But I refused to go back to the church. I refused to go back and pray to Jesus, or to even pray to God that I knew, because what kind of God would allow that to happen, right? So I go through years and even become an agent of destruction, much like what Rollo Tomasi brags about, converting people away from Christianity into whatever bullshit ideology he's got, into believing nothing. I took pride in doing that to people because I had educated myself with the gods of Egypt, the gods of the Greeks, the gods of the Romans, and understood how that lineage had similarities throughout, and how the New Age, I immersed myself in the New Age mind fucking that causes one to doubt and question and drop the thing that would save humanity. And so I went on a mission to destroy anybody and everybody who professed any faith. And I did so successfully. I did so, and I didn't really take pride in hurting the people, but I just felt like maybe I was taking something back from God. Love. And as I got a little bit older, the experiences in my life started to be such that I could no longer separate what I was experiencing with what I had done, what I was expecting with what I thought about myself. And I couldn't find a way out of it. And so I said a prayer, finally, after almost 20 years, and I asked God to show me what I needed to see. I asked God for help. And almost immediately I got exactly what I asked for. And it was painful. It was very painful awakening to see truths become lies and see where I was wrong, where I'd screwed things up. And I didn't dive in and become a religious zealot or anything like that. I just found it peculiar that the day after I asked for clarity, I was bombarded with truth. Now today, after several years of analyzing myself and looking at what I've done, who I've been, and what I've believed, I realize that I've got a penance to pay. I've got a price to pay, and when it comes to my time, I know that I'll have to pay that. I know that I will. And I'm okay with that. But my job going forth now is to try to help men deal with the things that we're dealing with in this most troubling time. And I want to give men a perspective. Any man who maybe has found himself pulled away from his faith and see the way that things have gone, don't think that a God of love would allow these things. There's no place in this experience where it was promised that we're supposed to be happy or joyous. There's no place, even in biblical text, that says that that's what we're supposed to be here for. There's no text that says that these structures and these weird manipulations that we get by men controlling our lives are what we are supposed to be or do or how we're supposed to function. But many people have fallen into the trap of thinking that this narrative is so popular and so powerful. Mankind has looked for the end of days since the beginning of days. And so it's never going to happen because that's been what men focus on. That's what they've focused on from the early Sumerians all the way to today, waiting for a return, waiting for a retribution, waiting for an end. Well, I would argue this. It has ended. It's ended several times for several cultures. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Romans, Greeks, and soon the Americans. All empires that once believed in God, that gave praise to God, whatever their God was. They were granted prosperity. They were granted success. They were granted domain. They were granted protection. And along the way, the end didn't come. The end that these people, they feared, didn't come. And so they became lax. They became indulgent in their desires. They became narcissistic, solipsistic. All of these things that we see today. They became this and they destroyed themselves. They're no longer, the only thing left of these cultures are fragments of teeth of a once great empire. And every one of those empires crumbled because they forgot about the gods. They forgot about their God. At every point in every culture, they got so vain that they started shaking their fists to the air and defying God, and immediately something happened that they're no longer. And so today, Christianity has been it's been dragged through the ground. Postmodern people like Tomasi like to believe in man's arrogance, that they're smarter than the rules and the precepts that have been given to us that would simply make society better. Right now, the 10 Commandments, if everybody simply followed those things, the manosphere would vanish, wars would vanish, all the things that we suffer as humans would vanish if we just simply followed the rules that were given to Moses. But that's antiquated bullshit, and we need to move past that because we're so fucking smart that we don't need that anymore. We don't need that old lambskin shit anymore because we're brilliant. And we got men like Tomasi and Freud and Fauci and all of the people that we've looked to from the old times to current times, lying to us and pretending that they're superior to anyone and anything else. And I think a lot of people have lost the main purpose of Christ's influence in his word. And this is the thing that I would like to give to you guys in closing. If you want to change your life, if you want the world around you to change, then I say this. Stop thinking that Jesus is supposed to come out of the sky in a chariot and we're going to see a Hollywood movie. In order for anything to happen, we need to understand the same thing that they spoke, that Hermes spoke back in antiquity and Jesus spoke recently. All the kingdoms of heaven, hell, all the gods, all the demons, they're all within you. They're all within us. The Jesus' return doesn't necessarily look like a Hollywood movie. Maybe what that is Jesus' spirit, the spirit of the man, the spirit of the man, the character of the man. That's what needs to return. That's what we need to bring back into our hearts as men. It's not woo-woo bullshit. Don't let foolish men convince you that that's woo-woo bullshit. Because if we all simply brought that back into our hearts, what would we have to fight for? What would we have to fight about? If we simply did that, then we could clearly see the evil hand that's been manipulating humanity for a long time. This isn't about believing in a fantasy. It's about putting an agency on your life. It's about putting a steering wheel on your purpose and bringing back into your heart the one thing, the only thing that can stop America and the world from burning. It's time for us to embrace our spirituality and our faith because the universe has an order. The universe has laws. Whether mankind can decipher that code or not is irrelevant. It's not our job to decipher the code. It's our job to live it out.